Welcome. This is Frank Cohen, founder at Push2Test. I invite you to spend the next 10 minutes of your time to understand how open source testing may benefit your organization. Push2Test operates a thriving open source community, and what we've noticed from many organizations within that community is the effort to adopt Web 2.0 successes on the public internet into an enterprise's applications internally. What we also find is that organizations are adopting service-oriented architecture techniques, and they're building composite applications that reuse existing services. They're also service enabling their applications. The issues that we see are that we're starting to build applications differently again. Let me show you an example of one. This is the new TestMaker 5.5 product. It's an open source testing solution, very appropriate for testing web applications, rich internet applications, service-oriented architecture, and business process management systems. In TestMaker 5.5, we introduced a new TestMaker editor. In the TestMaker editor, I can click here under New Functional Test. Under the Use Cases tab, I can click here and identify what type of test I'd like to run. I can even browse out to the local file system and identify which test I want to run. Notice all of this interactivity is fully integrated with the desktop, and yet the way that we chose to build the editor is an indication of how software development is changing in general. For you see, behind the TestMaker editor is actually an Ajax application. That Ajax application makes use of very beautiful components from companies like EXTJS, now known as Sentia. The event handling that you see here, the interactivity, is provided using jQuery. All of this is integrated and packaged up into a desktop application using Accelerator Titanium. And the result is that I have a single code base that I now can deploy to Macintosh systems, Windows systems, Linux and Unix systems. But I can also deploy this as a browser-based application. Notice here is the contents of the editor, and the editor itself has an index page, which allows me to open the editor within the browser. The way that we're building applications is different now, and that means that our technical team members are going to be encountering a haze of new protocols, software models, and data formats. Many of us in the management roles might think, oh, okay, we can just shorten the software development lifecycle. And many organizations will tell me that they're actually headed away from waterfall-style development methodology towards Agile. But when you really probe a little bit more, what we find is that they're telling their development teams, hey, start releasing products faster. It might be that, say, every 8 weeks, 30% of the application changes. And unfortunately, if you're using one of the existing proprietary test tools, chances are that 30% of those application changes will break 30% of the tests that you've already recorded. I even call it the test and trash technique, and unfortunately it's very effective at burning out testers and even software developers. What we also know from our experience with the Push2Test community is that uptime very much depends on business service management testing. You need an automated way of surfacing functional issues and performance issues to really be successful with the reality of Web 2.0 development. What's worse is that the cost of the proprietary test tools is hugely significant to your budget. When we looked at some proprietary test tool products pricing, what we saw is that one company was charging approximately $40,000 for their functional test platform. And unfortunately, that was completely incompatible with the other product they were offering, which is a load testing tool. So by the time you're done writing the test scripts to prove the functionality of your application, you have to write those test scripts entirely over again as load test scripts. And of course, none of this spending actually guarantees you success. What we've also noticed is that the proprietary test tools have fallen behind at keeping up with all of the great and innovative ways that we're building software today. When we look at 2009, there were great new inventions, and yet we didn't see the proprietary test tool vendors participate in any way in those great releases. At the same time that the proprietary test tool vendors are falling behind, open source testing has emerged to provide you with a lot of different options. The push-to-test solution comes in 5 parts. Take a single test script and repurpose it to be a functional test, a load and performance test, or a business service monitor. We believe in a component methodology. The test should be able to run even after the application changes. It should be very easy for you to be able to run these tests in your own QA lab, in push-to-test on-demand network, or both. Push-to-test provides expertise, training, tools, and a variety of different global services to your organization. And lastly, we're very enthusiastic about what we do. We participate and contribute to these open source test projects. Let me give you an example of one recent experience that we had. In this case, what we recommended for test authoring was to use a combination of SoapUI, Selenium, and Java-based tests, orchestrated and deployed in TestMaker. The tests were easily operated within the QA labs on site, but also there was a time when the organization needed to run tests larger than the equipment that they had in their own QA lab. So they used the push-to-test on-demand cloud testing network. The TestMaker system is able to do results analysis to identify the root cause of a performance bottleneck or a functional issue. TestMaker also includes correlation technology. While the load test is operating on the front of the application, the push-to-test system is observing memory leaks, thread deadlocks, slow database connections, and slow database queries. And lastly, push-to-test has a good reputation among its customers to roll up its sleeves and be able to work side by side with your technical team members to deliver our expertise. All of this great technology and methodology and service work provides a quality engineering process to your organization. It is a single framework approach that developers, testers, and IT operations people can use in common to be able to surface performance bottlenecks and solve functional issues. The TestMaker system includes a test runtime. So you author a test in something like Selenium or SoapUI, which comes fully integrated with TestMaker, and the console sends those SoapUI or Selenium test scripts to a test node. So the test node has script runners for running the SoapUI tests, for running Selenium scripts, or even for running unit tests that are written in Java or Ruby or PHP or Perl or a variety of other languages. If you tell TestMaker to operate, say, 100 virtual users, the test node will create 100 threads and operate each of those threads concurrently. The test then interoperates with the application or service under test. The test node returns the results back to the console, and the console has that results analysis engine to produce charts identifying the root cause of the performance bottleneck. The PTT monitor observes CPU, network, and memory utilization and returns those results back to the console as the test operates. The same architecture makes it very easy to do browser compatibility testing. When it's time to operate this test as a load and performance test, it's probably not appropriate to operate within a browser like Internet Explorer because there's only so much resource that the test node has for memory and CPU to operate the browser. Instead, we also include the HTML unit headless browser. It's headless in that as the test is operating, it's still interoperating with the application, but it never requires human interaction. TestMaker, the console, can send a test over to a test node running in a grid of machines within your own QA lab. The grid technology enables TestMaker to send the test over to the available test nodes. The test nodes run the test and then they become available to run the next test. We've partnered with Amazon and GoGrid and CollabNet so that when you press the Start button, TestMaker will automatically create machine instances within those cloud testing environments. The test nodes will run the test, return the results back to TestMaker, and then TestMaker will take down these test node machine instances so that your organization only pays for the time that you're actually running the test. I hope that this presentation has interested you enough to begin your own evaluation of TestMaker. Thank you for spending your time to understand how open source testing could benefit your organization.